Welcome everyone to another episode of Cybersecurity Weekly. I'm Fred Cobb with Infosystems, and joining me again today is Josh Davis, VP of Marketing, also with Infosystems. Josh, last episode, we were talking about some ransomware basics, just a little bit of a history of ransomware. Where does it come from? Why are we still talking about it several years after it first came on the scene? Today, I want to talk a little bit about what we can do, what you can do as business owners, as individuals, in trying to make sure that the cyber criminals that release that type of attack are not successful.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things we can be doing that are fairly basic. They don't cost a lot of money, and it can really thwart these types of attacks.
I think if you're talking about stuff that doesn't cost a lot of money, there'll be a lot of interest.
Yes. Not everything that you do from a cybersecurity perspective has to come with a big price tag.
Yep.
So we're going to explore some of those things today. The phishing campaign that we talked about in really our second podcast episode, and also the idea of indiscriminate phishes versus targeted phishes, where they're just out there, they're being blasted, in some cases in a robotic fashion, so that you may be falling victim to them, even though you're wondering again, why am I the target?
I think that was great info too, because some people who may not think, why am I the target? You may not actually be a target. It's just that anybody's the target, and these are attacks that are just free floating out there.
Absolutely. You get this why me? Or first off, you have it can't happen to me, because why would anybody be interested in what I'm doing, what I've got? And then you get the why me after it does happen.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's through an automated fashion. But it's important to understand some of the basics that you can do to protect yourselves. I can't tell you how many times that I've been called in on a forensics investigation or an active cyber event where you'll get the call, panic-stricken customer. I think something's going on. I can't get access to my file. So just a few minutes of poking around on the network, you determine, yes, you've been victim of ransomware. The first thing that typically comes out of my brain and talking about, well, after we attempt to do any type of quarantining, do any sort of containment, is, do you have good backups? And it's amazing to me still to this day, a lot of times people will say no.
Yeah.
And that could be the proverbial last nail in the coffin for a lot of businesses, because you can't always, as we discussed in the last episode, you can't always count on the bad guys. Even if you pay, you can't always count on the bad guys giving you the decryption keys that's going to unlock your files.
Yeah.
So you have to be reliant on your backups. And if your backups are questionable, if you're not routinely testing them through trial restores, using a reputable company, not having your backups mounted, because a lot of not even the latest, but some of the ransomware that was released around, say, 2016, early 2017, it would not only attack your computer locally, but it would look to see what is mounted. In other words, if I had a tape device mounted that contained my backups, it would say, oh, let me attach to that and encrypt it. So all of a sudden, you think you've got good backups, but guess what? Your backups are also encrypted. That's bad news.
Which you would have known had you been testing your tape backups.
Or at least understanding the fact that if I'm doing backups, part of my backup strategy is to, once I've backed up my data, I disconnect that device, or I'm using an isolated, like a cloud solution for my backup, something that would not typically stay connected, something that would have perimeter security, so that even if my computer proper was successfully attacked by ransomware, it couldn't get to my backups.
Yeah.
We run into customers routinely that aren't doing backups. They're not testing the backups. Had a recent situation where a customer thought they were using a reputable company for backups. They've been using them for years. Guess what? They get hit by ransomware. So in trying to help them, we started looking at their backup solution. Not going to name vendor names or anything like that, but the vendor supposedly had touted, we have a ransomware recovery strategy. They didn't have a ransomware recovery strategy. Customer couldn't get access to backups except for backups that were 3 or 4 months old. So
Wow.
If you imagine you're running a business where you're doing transactional based work, and the best you can hope for is to get data back that's 4 months old, where does that leave you?
Yeah, that's rough.
It is very rough. So,
We'll be back with the Cybersecurity Weekly podcast after we pause to recognize our partner, IBM Software. IBM QRadar is a SIEM software that helps security teams accurately detect and prioritize threats across the enterprise. SIEM is spelled SIEM and stands for Security Information and Event Management. QRadar SIEM provides intelligent insights that enable teams to respond quickly to reduce the impact of security incidents. QRadar SIEM is available on premises and in a cloud environment. Take your enterprise security to the next level with Infosystems and IBM QRadar. You can learn more by downloading the IBM QRadar white paper from the Infosystems website at www.infosystems.biz. Just go to the podcast blog post for today's episode. Now back to the podcast.
so backups are a good strategy. Make sure that you are, first off, you're creating them securely. You're testing them, not only for ransomware, but just good incident response planning or disaster recovery testing. You want to make sure if the big day comes, when you have a critical event happen on your network, that you're able to get your data back through good backups.
Yeah.
Another key piece of ransomware defense is to have an incident response plan. Customers or businesses need to think about different scenarios, and ransomware is a major player. It's one of those where it's, once in a million it may happen. No, it's very likely that it could happen in today's climate. So you need to have defined procedures around, if this happens, what do we do? Who do we call? A lot of times your incident response plan may be call Infosystems, one line. I've actually seen one-line incident response plans where they immediately engage their security provider or their infrastructure provider. But seriously, incident response plans should have, we identify the threat, we mobilize the incident response team, we identify what's happening, we perform containment, we understand the business impact enough to understand what could potentially be effective. We have procedures in place where if we have to go to manual mode, all these different things you want to account for in your incident response plan. What's your recovery time objective? Think about it as a business. You can say, well, I can afford to be down for 3 days. Okay, some businesses will say, I can never be down.
Yeah.
If I'm down for a minute, I'm so transactional, I'm going to have corrupted databases, I'm going to have customers that are upset with me. So part of your incident response strategy is to determine true recovery time objectives and recovery points. Also have recovery points as part of your backup strategy.
Yeah.
If you're taking routine recovery points on your servers, that helps to foster or helps to keep your backups, have those recovery points as part of your backup, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So you can get back to just a few hours of lost data as opposed to literally months.
Yeah.
One of the more important things you can do, train.
Yeah.
I've talked about on a previous podcast the KnowBe4 product. It's fantastic for doing simulated attacks. In fact, one of the things that we offer through KnowBe4 is a ransomware readiness assessment, where we can, in a controlled manner, in a non-lethal manner, so to speak, we can fire or test your network for 16 common ransomware variants. How susceptible are you? Without actually you having to experience a true ransomware attack.
Yeah.
So I highly encourage you to train with scenarios, train your employees on how to determine if they are getting phished, how not to bring software in on USB sticks, all the different things that you can do to potentially shore up your environment.
Yeah. I love the, having an incident response plan. The difference between not having a plan and having a plan can be the survival of your company. I mean, as a marketing person, I look at, talk to people who are in my role for other companies, and sometimes I hear marketing directors admit to not having a marketing plan. You know, and my comment to that is always, if you don't have a plan, how do you ever expect to be successful doing that thing?
Exactly. And the big day comes and you are in the moment. An attack is happening. Your files are not available. Your employees and your customers are, the temperature's starting to boil. If you don't have a plan with names and numbers and procedures and contact information, all those things that you should be doing very methodical, going through each of these sort of as a checklist, all of a sudden you can quickly get overwhelmed. You're panicked. You may not be able to handle that type of pressure without having this controlled document or document that spells out how to do this in a controlled manner.
Yeah.
So incident response plans are very crucial.
Yep.
And a lot of companies don't have them. One of the things that we offer at Infosystems is an incident response plan service where we will craft a customized incident response plan to your organization.
Yep.
And it's a lot of customers have taken us up on that, and we'll even come in and review your existing plans if you think you've got one that's solid. Does it have the right information? Is it current? Is it considering things that are happening or could potentially happen in your environment today? So we can do a real thorough look at that.
Yeah, that's great information.
So there are some other things you can do as far as ransomware defense. There's technology tools that you can buy. There's things related to everything from spam filtering to looking at network events, something known as a SIM, security incident and event monitoring solution. A lot of times that's out of reach of the small business owner to put a full-fledged SIM. But there are some low-cost technical solutions that you can put on your network as well that will help to identify potential threats such as ransomware. But the biggest thing you can do is to train the human. The human is the weakest link when it comes to IT security. You may have heard the term out there, securing the human. A lot of people going around the country at cybersecurity talks talking about that, and particularly with the Internet of Things, where your toaster has an IP address these days.
Yeah.
So if you think about just your home environment and things that can be hacked because everything is available on the Internet, everything has an IP address. But train your employees to be aware, and that'll go a long way in defending against ransomware.
That's great.
We could go on and on about it, but we'll go ahead and stop the podcast for now. Josh, I appreciate your time. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and more good topics coming up in the future. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Fred.
Thanks. Goodbye.